morning.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Rod Hughes and I'm here today in Cae Mawr field in the heart of Hay. Today and this weekend we are celebrating several events. First of all, this is the 100th anniversary of the Royal British Legion. Also, it's the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, and we're having in our field here today a lot of reenactors and a lot of organisations who are going to commemorate that fact. Arriving today, for example, we've got Land Army girls, and they have a tractor and hay wain and various ladies over there uniformed up in the far corner there. Over on my left we've got some of the German organised events, and there's a Feldwebel car, and we got some of the reenactors in German uniform. Behind them we've got some Brits, and over to our right behind we've also got some American soldiers. So today the field, they are arriving all the time, and today the field is going to be quite busy. We've got a lot of civilian organised events going on here as well as changing steps, and also we've got representation from the British Legion. Tomorrow will be a lot of parades where the soldiers and the reenactors and various organisations will be marching through town, having a lot of fun with that. That will culminate with some evening entertainment. Then on Sunday we've got the official parades then to the cenotaph, where we will be presenting at the cenotaph and taking a service there and so on. And that will finally end then at the end of Sunday afternoon, where we will need to close the field and hand it back. And so welcome everybody. I hope you get an opportunity to arrive and come up and see us. We look forward to that. And until then, all the best, and come up to Hay and Wye and enjoy yourself for a good weekend. Okay, and thank you.
Well, yeah, they all seem to be rushing in this morning.
Good morning, here we are. This is my tactical command post. It's a Series 3 Land Rover that was converted by a company so that the Army could have facilities for their senior officers to be able to sleep, have an office, and underneath here is a sink. So he's got full facilities in here. In the field he would also have an annex, a tent on the back here for his minions, his lower staff to work from. But it was designed so he's got everything he wants. The phone in there, he's got a phone. It's not all fully set up at the moment, but there'll be a phone in there that he could speak to anybody he wanted to, and that would mean you, the President of America, anybody. If they wanted some information, he could speak to them on that radio. The vehicle was designed to blend in. You think about Monty and his caravan and so on. That carried on through, and then they realised that these big lorries, command posts, were too big, so they squashed it down to the Land Rover size. And it, with the roof down, the roof is up at the moment, but with the roof down it should look like a normal Land Rover, except they go and put a roof rack on the back because the Brigadier doesn't want smelly cam nets in the back. So this will be looked after by his house sergeant and his driver. And when I got hold of it, I met the sergeant that actually worked with this, with the signals up in York. He was worked with it, and I said, oh God, I've got to bull it up since these high ranking officers use it. He said, no, he said, just keep it normal so it blends in. So lucky enough, I haven't got to bull it up. I just keep it clean and tidy, and it does its job. It's a lovely vehicle. It's really nice engine in it. It's been well looked after. I was lucky to find it. It was in a barn for 20 years. It had come out of the army, put in a barn, lucky enough a dry barn, with a few other vehicles. The inside had been taken all out for some unknown reason, but lucky enough it was there. And inside, as I've said, there's his office work. On there normally would be maps and his pencils, his papers, his stamps, everything he needs, all his books on regulations. And then where he's sat is his bed. That slides out, and it's a single berth. And he would spend the night there, and he's got a bowl under here. There's a sink with a tap which is pumped water through, and so he can clean his teeth when he wants to. But that's fully contained for him to do his job. There is a picture of it. That officer there, that is in the Gulf down the bottom there, I don't know if you can pick that up. That's him in the Gulf. That's the only one that went out to the Gulf. This one was prepped to go. You can tell that by the markings on the side, but most of the assets for the Gulf come from BAOR, so this one didn't go. That's what it looked like coming out of the barn and the inside. But lucky enough, I had all its information. I've got all its documents from its very first issue into the army, all its servicing, all its repairs to its demob, and I've kept that records going. And this is showing the work I'd done. There's the annex that would go on the back where his subalterns would work from. All the underneath, of course, it had been sat for a long time, so it was in good order, but just needed a bit of TLC. That is the Cae wagon as in a sales brochure, what it would look like. And Cae wagon is a name of a company. It's no longer making. But they did do a civilian version, and the civilian version actually was a two-berth, a comfortable two-berth, but what they didn't have was the office side in there. And that goes around the shows with me. Lot of interest, especially from the signals lads. And the security around this, there's not many photographs of it. The security around this would have an RMP close security, then it would have a company of infantry ringed round it, then an armoured recce regiment would be on the outer ring, and depending on the rank of the officer, it might, or the person using it, they might have had 2 jump jet Harriers also to look after it. So it's quite a rare beast. There was only 5 right-hand drives made. There was about 72. I'm just checking my notes because I've got so many vehicles. Yeah, about 72 that were made, but only 5 right-hand drives. And this is a right-hand drive. I know where 4 are. We don't know where the 5th one is. Okay, what you're seeing is the display boards for the Mark 7B wheelbarrow. This vehicle was used in Northern Ireland and blown up in Northern Ireland. The picture you're looking at is believed to be my vehicle, and then the other pictures are of it on my garage floor of me during the restoration. Lucky enough, it wasn't blown up, it was blown over, so most of the damage was to the superstructure, but the wiring was a bit shooken up, and as you can see, it's all one colour, yellow, so it's given me great fun trying to sort it out. Between 1976 and 1978, over 400 of these EOD wheelbarrows was destroyed whilst in action. So if you look at that, that is at least one life saved, and that will be the officer, the EOD guy that would do the long walk up towards the bomb. The Colonel Miller, the designer of this vehicle, as you can see, the wheeled version, the Mark 1, Colonel Miller, he'd gone into work and he'd lost a friend, and they knew they had to do something, so he went off and he was cutting his grass. In fact, if you can't read it, but it will tell you the full story. He was cutting his lawn, but by tethering his lawnmower and let the lawnmower just go round and round in circles, and they got the idea. So he went down to the garden centre and bought a mechanised wheelbarrow, took the barrow box carrier off, leaving the two wheels, which was guided by rope, and the idea was to get to the device and disturb it, so that they could save it for evidence. It worked, so they were improved on that up to the Mark II, and Colonel Miller, being a tanky, realised that the tracks would be more stable over different terrain and also would go in straight lines, so they moved over to tracks. They got up to a Mark III, and then they realised then they'd have to go off to a company, Morfax, to make the further marks. This is a Mark 7B. They eventually got up to a Mark 9. They've even gone further now. They're all electronic and can do things. This can pick an egg up, and so can the new ones pick an egg up. The only difference is this breaks the egg, where the new ones can pick it up without breaking it. It's not as delicate as the newer ones, but it will perform the job needed, and every time it went out it was saving a life. And they reckon that during the career of this vehicle, it's possibly over 600 lives that it's saved. Very interesting vehicle. I'll just show you. I haven't got it fully working. As I said, most of the electrics are not completely, but it would go down. I can't pick this up because I've got the wrong weights on the back, but it would be designed, as you can see, to pick that up. And as I've got full facilities of operating the picker, the pinchers and that, that's the best I can show. But it would pick it up, move it away from the wall, just moving the device slightly away from a building. Although there would be damage, the structural damage would be minimalised. The idea of the EOD guys was to get as much forensics as possible. So what they're trying to do is disrupt the explosive devices so that they could get fingerprints and goodness knows what from it. But so they weren't intentionally blowing them up like they used to in the beginning.
Is there a camera on top? There's
a camera on top, yes. There's two cameras, one at the back here and another one at the top. And also a bit later on, I'm going to put up the full surveillance kit so that they can observe from a distance. But the camera, they all work, but I can't get them to work because the wiring inside is broken, or it's come apart, or one of the relays is not clicking on properly. But I've had it all working. It's just that it some days decides to play, some days it doesn't. But it keeps me busy in the winter.
Hi there, my name's Gary and this is my replica Kübelwagen. It's a radio vehicle, as you can see by the radio. I've had it for about 8 years and gradually done it up to the standard it is now. It's quite a good replica, worth a fair bit of money today. And I take it to quite a few shows, as many as I possibly can. So people seem to enjoy it and like it, and yes, part of my extended hobby. Over here we have another part of my display, which is the ubiquitous German MG42. It fires 1200 rounds a minute, which is 20 rounds a second. It's on a tripod at the moment, but there is another stand you can get for it. This box of ammunition here would last probably less than half a minute. German stick grenades, very popular even amongst the Allied troops. They would get hold of those because they were easy to actually use and you could actually throw them further. These are snail magazines, which instead of the belt you could fit that on the side there, but 2.5 seconds worth of ammunition in one of those, which holds 50 rounds. And that's that part. German Panzerfaust for knocking out tanks. This was the first of the shaped charged weapons, which today you've got the Russian, what's it called? I've forgotten what it's called now. Anyway, Russian, very similar to that, based on that. And we have our own weapons also, which have shaped charges for knocking out tanks. Czechoslovakian hedgehog. Everybody admires that, thinking it's actually a metal one, but I made it out of timber. And yeah, the finish is pretty good on that. Over here we have the German Enigma machine. This is a replica, but it shows people, and I can actually explain how they work. These had 158 million different ways of setting these up. So it's very, very complicated, and all gratitude to Bletchley Park and everybody that worked there for breaking that code. They reckon it's saved 2 years worth of the war by breaking that code. Here we have a Morse code key. Field telephone. That's not really a German one, but it was cheap and it looks very similar, but it's not a German one. A couple of German helmets. This is a air raid siren, which you normally would have fitted to a vehicle, but yeah, that's quite good. Very important for the reenactor. Keep your beer in. And it's a bunker stove, which saved many lives on the Eastern Front. You could fit your canteen in there, which would warm your food, or you could actually hold it on the side, which would keep your food warm. And they would use any fuel that they could get hold of, old shoes, anything, and whatever would burn. And the tent with bits and pieces in, we do live in that, so it's not really that authentic, but there we have it. That's my display. And we've got the furry dog.
Hiya, I'm Roger. I work for Change Step, we're a support service for veterans who are in crisis. There's a number of agencies that we work with alongside our own services. One is the Admiral Nurse, so I'll pass you over to Helen.
Yes, good morning. My name's Helen Buckley. I'm the Admiral Nurse Regional Lead for South Wales, but what I'm promoting today is our national service, which is a telephone support service for carers of a person living with dementia who are linked to services. We do provide products to help carers look after their loved ones. We do psychological support, and we are available through an email, which is ansupport@britishlegion.com.
Yeah, within Change Step, we, like I said before, that we're a support service for veterans who find it hard to integrate back into civil society. However, a great number of them suffer from mental health problems, but also a lot of them suffer with housing and welfare, or because of damage from service, that we help them support them through the war pension scheme. By way of doing this is we just need to highlight the service that we provide for veterans, that it's completely free. But when we look at the service as a whole, that we find that a number of veterans don't like to ask for help. So if you're a veteran out there and you need some help, please come and ask. There's somebody out there to help you.
And from the Admiral Nursing Service point of view, I'm going to give you a telephone number as well, which is our contact centre number. It's 0808 802 8080. Thank you.
Okay. I'll introduce him to the Armed Forces Covenant officers.
Hi, my name is Abby Warburton and I'm the Veteran Advice Officer for the Vale of Glamorgan Council and the Armed Forces Liaison Officer for the Vale of Glamorgan and Cardiff.
Hi, my name is Jamie Island. I'm the Armed Forces Covenant Liaison Officer for Cwmtaf, and I'm also a Veteran Advice Officer. We are here today in Cae Mawr to support Change Step. Since the service launched in 2014, it's been an excellent service. Many families and the Armed Forces community have really benefited from the service, so we are here today to support Change Step.
The Veteran Advice Service covers all sorts of inquiries from the council perspective, which is housing, council tax, benefits.
And any other council services that are required, we are here to help as a single point of contact for the council. And we can also then, we've built up excellent knowledge of organisations and charities such as Change Step, Royal British Legion, and we're there to signpost and refer if required.
Morning. I display a motorcycle dispatch rider command post round about 1944, basically swaying towards the Arnhem campaign, Operation Market Garden. The dispatch rider, as you may or may not know, is a guy that worked by himself, mainly going in between regiments and command posts, delivering messages, etc. and this is basically just portraying a small outpost complete with telephones, binoculars, maps, daylight signal lamp, etc., that they would have used to relay messages, etc. A lot of the kit is original. The tent is a reproduction period equipment. We'll go over to the, yep. The motorcycle itself is a 1944 matchless, built in Plumstead, London. It was delivered from the factory to the Home Office, or the War Department as then, in August 44. It's been totally restored. It goes to Arnhem once a year over in Holland. It's been to Normandy for the anniversaries, etc., etc. And she's a good, reliable machine. It's also used for shopping and going to work.
Put it next to the
Not very accurate to shoot though when you got the band.
So welcome to Cae Mawr. We're the Russian scout unit, and we've been pushed forward to the German lines. So we've got our anti-tank rifle. Unlike the Americans and the Germans who had rockets, we still have to use anti-tank rifles to kill tanks. So we've mixed that in with some captured German landmines, which we're currently putting along. And we've also got our old tank traps that we set at the start of the war, which are basically railway sleepers and lines dug into the ground, so the tanks come up to them, have to ride up to them, and then when they expose their underbelly, we can shoot them with the rifle and hopefully kill the tanks. We've also got a couple of engineers that have got mine detecting kit, so we're sweeping for the other mines, and then we'll reuse the German mines against their own people. Whatever the weather, we're out on our knees looking for mines. So rain or shine, we'll be digging for mines all day. So the PTRD in front of you is an early developed bolt action anti-tank rifle. It was a single shot, but it was also semi-automatic. Every time you fired one shot, the bolt would spring back open, ready for the loader to put a new round in. It used a heavy cord round and would go through 37mm of armour at 500 metres. So it was effective if you could get the tank to sideways on or up on its belly. So that's why we've mixed it in with a few landmines, and we've got our tank traps that will hopefully raise the tanks up so we can shoot underneath it.
This is a 1938 Morris 8, and I've had it since I was 16 years old, and I bought it off my uncle and spent a year trying to get it roadworthy, and it was our wedding car in 1974, and it then went off the road for many years until our son was getting married a couple of years ago, and he said, "Dad, can I have the old car for our wedding?" So I frantically had to get it all spruced up, and it had a restoration job partly done, but it was ready for the wedding, and he enjoyed it as well. And a couple of years ago we put it into its blackout wartime World War II condition, because we wanted to contribute to all the VE Day celebrations which were due to take place, but unfortunately they were cancelled due to COVID. So rather than take all the white lines and blackout cover off, we thought it'd be nice to try and join in with any of the wartime events which were going on locally, and that's why we're here today. It's quite a good car. It's not very fast. It goes travels nicely at 40 miles an hour, so it's not very good in heavy traffic, but it's fun to drive, and as long as you keep away from the main roads, you can enjoy life with it as your sport and your hobby.
At a leisurely pace. I'm actually quite glad of it. Isn't it? So they're going to ask you your name, last number. And Sylvia's here as well to keep you company.
Hello. Hello, Irene. Hi, I'm Nikki.
Oh, I love your. I used to love my coats.
Did you? They're so comfortable, aren't they?
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
And you can bend and everything. It's
You can.
Yeah.
Only sometimes the knees get a little bit kind of like. I went to put my shoes on this morning and I was like, oh, right, okay. No, I'll have to do that when I'm standing up.
Your socks as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Kept yours.
No, well, this is all stuff that I've bought over the years when I found it. So it's all original stuff, but yeah.
Mine all wore out because when my husband and I, after I got married and we bought a small holding, I used to help him on the farm, so I used to.
And it was workwear, wasn't it? That's the thing.
Workwear,
yeah, absolutely.
But it's lovely to see it, brings tears to the eyes.
Oh, bless you. Bless you.
I said it would bring back old memories. Yes.
Because old Ray used to see Ray, didn't you?
Yeah, my husband now she's talking about. Yes.
Yes, it was lovely.
Yes.
Well, I thought we'd make you a cup of tea first, so that you have a nice cup or a nice cup of coffee. There we go. Look, we bought the breast crockery.
Priorities.
Priorities are definitely right.
I've got a pair of green trousers, but I've lost height. I've lost 2 inches.
Have you shrunk? Now, my nan used to call that duck's disease. I don't know, but she reckoned everybody shrinks, don't they?
Do, and I didn't realise, and I was wondering why the trousers were hanging. And I went for my checkup, and she said, what height are you? I said 5'2". She said, no, you're not, you're 5 foot. You lost 2 inches. I said, I want that 2 inches back.
So I want them. I'm going to go and look for them.
I said, nobody's taking 2 inches from me.
Oh, bless you.
There we are, you do. And I suddenly remembered my mother. She was coming towards me. She was elderly, down our dark passageway in the old house. And as she was coming towards me, I thought, she's a bit old woman. And she's never been like that to me, but it suddenly struck, she shrunk and I'm going like her now.
Yes, well, I think it comes to us all in the end, doesn't it?
Unfortunately.
I'm thinking as I'm getting shorter, everything's spreading out a bit more as well.
You don't lose anything, see, do you? They put it somewhere else.
They do. When I look at the photographs of you girls, though, where you were all lean and hard fit, weren't you?
Actually, we were. Though I used to think I was plump and compared with some, but I wasn't really. When I look back now, I've got one of me doing some, what they used to call it, with the fruit trees.
Oh, pruning.
Pruning.
Yeah.
And I've got this ladder up the wall, and I'm on the top of it, and I'm quite slim, and I thought, ooh,
look at me.
I had a figure then. What happened to it?
Did you always do market gardening?
No, I went on to machinery afterwards.
Right.
Market gardening I was mainly.
Right.
And that used to grieve me because if you were on machinery and it was a wet day, you didn't go to work.
Yeah.
But of course, market gardening, old Fred, our boss, he'd put us in this leaky old shed with a big thing of cold water, and we'd have to wash the old flower pots, and we'd be sitting there, and it used to be dripping in, and we'd be soaking wet, and we had all this cold water, we were doing all these pots, and then when we got about 4 or 5 o'clock, they'd say, well, all right, you can go home now, you'd say.
Yeah.
When we got home to the hospital, all the machinery girls had been in doing their washing, and
so they
we hadn't got an inch of.
Oh, bless you.
And we couldn't even have a bath,
Oh.
And I used to say, I'm going to transfer to machinery if only to get a shower, because I got so wet.
So where was the hostel that you were in?
Castle.
Right, okay. And was there many of you?
When I first went there were 40.
Was there? Gosh, that's quite a big hostel.
It was, yeah, but it was. I mean, it was lovely. It was a lovely old house. And I was so determined I wasn't going to go to a hostel. I'd originally, when I said I want to go private farming, because I had a cousin that was in the land army in Cambridge, and she used to tell me these horrific tales of in her hostel you couldn't leave anything about. They were always
things were go missing.
So I said, I am not going to a hostel. So that was it. So anyway, they sent me. They were going to. The first place they were going to send me to was Lanucci Dwells, to a hotel, and I was going to be in charge of so many geese and so many.
Oh wow!
horse, and I thought, well, I don't know one end of a goose from another.
And geese are not nice, are they?
No. I think they bite.
They do.
And I thought, never mind. Anyway, 2 days before I was due to go, they sent me a letter to say a local girl had got the job. So I was to proceed to Maslouk Castle. It's a hostel, and I thought, I rang them and I said, I'm not going. I said, I did specifically say I wanted a private. She said, but I'm sorry, you'll have to go. So I thought, go for a fortnight, see how you like it. I said, I'll go for a week, and if I don't like it, I'm coming home. So that was that. So anyway, I got there, and we had to change at Hereford office and the train. And there was another girl, she was from Liverpool, and she was waiting. And we got on the train to Lanesbury. And when we got there was this old jalopy waiting for us. Oh, I've never seen such a thing. Anyway, we got in. She said, oh, I'm sorry, you can't get in. You've got to get out and push because it don't start. So that was our fun. So I said, I'm definitely going home.
Yeah, that's it. I'm not.
So when's the next train? Anyway, we got it. We got going eventually, and then we were going, and then we got a long drive to Maslouk. And as you came round the bend, it was a beautiful day, and it was all red ivy all over and the sun was shining. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
Oh, was it like that Virginia creeper? Gorgeous.
Yeah, gorgeous. And the sun was shining on it. And
so it looked a bit better.
Oh, it did. I thought, I'm going to like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, as soon as I got there, that was it. It was lovely.
Aww.
And there were about 40 of us then. But
and you joined in 1944, wasn't it? Something like that. Yeah.
Birthday.
Yeah. So what made you join the Land Army?
I was fed up with London, to be honest.
Were you?
Well, it was the buzz bombs time, and I had a good job, but it was just off Fleet Street in Fetter Lane, and it was just a wooden a brick building, and a window in it, and once you were in there, you were in it for the day.
Yeah.
It was an interesting job. We used to produce Holton Press, it was, Picture Post and Farmers Weekly, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But when the bus bombs came over, then they were right.
That must have been really scary.
Chap on the roof.
Yeah.
And every time they were, he used to sound a klaxon, and we had to get down and go under our desk.
Oh my goodness.
Well, every time I did that, I used to miss the desk and hit my.
And hit your head.
I used to go home with a raging headache, and in the end, I said, I've had enough. I'm going to, and I wanted to go in the Wrens or the RAFs. So I didn't go home this one day. I came out from work and I thought, I'll go down Oxford Street where the recruiting office was. And I marched in and I said, I want to join the RAF. The RAFs or the Wrens, I didn't mind which. How old are you? I said, but I'm 17 today. She said, you've got to be 17 and a half.
Oh, no.
I said, I'm not waiting another 6 months.
Saying, I've come all this way.
Right, yeah. I said, no. Well, you can go in the Land Army. I said, right, put my name down.
That's it. I'll go.
I went home and I hadn't told my mother. She went through it.
Did she, what, for going into the Land Army?
Yeah.
Was she okay about...
She didn't.
Oh, right, okay. Right.
She was really, and she worked for the same company, Holton Press, as I did. And she knows she got me before a tribunal, right, to go before this tribe to say that I was very important in the firm. I was the only shorthand type.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, poppycock. I said, I'm the worst. I'm the worst. I was still going to evening classes, and half of those I used to miss. I used to go out with my boyfriend, he'd meet me at the corner, and we'd go to the picture.
So your shorthand wasn't all that?
No, all me typing. And I said, they're telling lies. I said, well, anyway, I said, if you refuse me now, you'll have me back in 6 months because I should be applying for the Wrens.
Yes.
So anyway, they let me go. And my mother was livid because she'd put them up to it, you know. And she'd gone to the bottom. And I said, don't you?
She didn't want you to go anywhere, did she?
You know, I don't know why, because we got on, but we weren't buddies, you know. And I said, you're always nagging me. You should be glad to get rid of me.
Aww.
Anyway, I got my way, but when I got to the hospital,
Good, good. That's really nice to hear a positive experience of that.
It was, because as I say, it all went different to what I thought it was going to be, you know.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a disaster.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking forward to looking after my geese.
Listen, have your cup of coffee whilst it's warm. I'm just going to nip off and get something.
So I didn't get to go to know them very much, but I knew what's coming in the road. I think Nicky wants you.
Are you all right, Irene? Irene, do you want to have a seat?
Yeah.
And we were just going to say a few words, if that's okay.
Yeah, fine.
Do everybody here? So lovely, thank you. At the outbreak of war in 1939, the director of the Land Army, Lady Gertrude Denman, wrote, "The Land Army fights in the fields. It's in the fields of Britain that the most critical battle of the present war may be well fought and won." Working in the shadow of the flag in difficult conditions and all weathers, and often without much recognition or reward, the Land Girls considered it their duty, a duty filled with true loyalty to the Crown and country. Women who came from rural backgrounds saw little change to the activities of daily living, and it didn't radically alter their attitude towards their lifestyle either. But for all those women who had not previously worked on the land, the experience was significant and profound, undertaking work in their service that they had never imagined possible or acceptable, challenging their capabilities and changing both theirs and others' opinions along the way. Their work on the farms, fields and forests were assignments that they carried out with pride, emerging as the unsung heroines of the war. The Land Army was often referred to as the Forgotten Army, but their contribution to the war effort created an undeniable shift in the mindset of the nation. And for all those groundbreaking women, the experience was a period of unprecedented liberation and self-discovery, and we owe them a debt of thanks that cannot ever be repaid or forgotten. Irene Gwynn, who is here today, was one of the 60,000 many-odd young women who were serving in the WLA across Great Britain when the war in Europe was declared as over in June 1945. Finally, in 2008, our government recognised the work of both the Women's Land Army and the Timber Corps jointly with the issue of a commemorative badge and a certificate of thanks which needed to be applied for. A gesture which, although generally well received, came too late for some, and many more for various reasons went without. So our group here at Hay became aware that Irene was one of those veterans who did not receive her so hard-earned reward. So we've sought to put that right. Irene, it is our very greatest honour and privilege to present you with the badge and certificate today, and we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all your endeavours to feed this nation in its time of need. And we have these flowers are for you as well. From everybody here at Hay, we just want to say thank you.
Well, I don't know what to say, I'm all overcome.
Bless your heart.
No, that's very nice, thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Round of applause for Irene. Good, now come and meet them. Come and meet Irene.
Use it all back, you know.
Good, good. So what do you think of the uniforms and stuff? Do you think it's...
I think they're brilliant.
Yes?
Especially the dungaree.
Yes.
The jodhpurs. I used to love my jodhpurs.
Have you come to say hello? This is my little girl Ivy.
Oh, hello. Nice to meet you. How old are you?
7.
Oh, gosh. Would you like to want a uniform?
I would have liked to take you with me. She's asking me, am I old enough?
It was lovely.
You got the right footwear on today, haven't you, Ivy? Yes. Yes. So, and this is this is Liz. So Liz is happy doing her mechanic stuff, getting her hands dirty, and And we've got Jen here, we've got Carrie who's representing Women's Timber Corps. So we've got a lumberjewel, and this is another Carrie. We've got two Carries. We've got a Fiona, we've got a Sue, we've got a Sam, we've got a Faye, we've got a Charlotte. We've got Vicky.
So they bring back lots of memories.
Oh, and so we've got Louise here. Sorry, Louise is tucked behind there. Look, and Bex. So we put this together. This is our land. We all do Women's Land Army stuff in different parts of the country. So we've been planning to do this event for about 3 years now. So this is the first time that we've all kind of like worked together. So, and tomorrow in the parade, there's going to be all of us in our best kit, and we've got the banners and everything. So we're going to be representing the Women's Land Army in the parade as well. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad we're not forgotten.
Bless you. No, never forgotten by us. Never forgotten by us.
Because we were looked down quite a bit, you know, at the time you used to feel it, you know, oh, you know, you're only land army and you're not really anything to do with the war, you know.
I know.
And I should say, well, I wouldn't well feel like it sometimes. Oh, you come and do my job.
It's an important part of the war, though, because you were growing food to feed the army anyway, so you were feeding them.
We would have been in a pickle without you, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Are you going to put? Should we put your badge on? You're going to wear your badge?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's put your badge on.
Picture of you with it, ma'am. And the certificate as well. You've got to have a picture.
There's your.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, that's nice. Oh, look at something on there.
Yeah, it's all framed now.
And the timber corps, yeah.
Yes.
I never thought about that. I just thought it was the land army.
Yes. No. Well. Eventually they recognised both of them. So, which was long overdue. So, where are you going to wear this? Where do you want to wear this?
Oh, what about it?
On your other side.
On that side?
I'm going to be double decorated.
You are. You'll be equally weighted down.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Look at that. That's amazing.
Oh, that is super.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
We you know, it's just a shame that more people, you know, more women weren't able to get that badge when it finally came out.
Yeah,
But
I think they were very reluctant to give it to us, really.
They were. They made it quite difficult.
I think they made it difficult.
Yeah.
As I say, we were the sort of, you know, the ragtag sort of thing, you know.
Well, not to us. Not to us.
You stood up for yourself, didn't you? I don't think they had a fighting chance.
Those geese never stood a chance, did they? Can we form up and can we get Matt to take a photograph? Is that all right? Is that all right if we? Oh yeah, finish your cake first, and your coffee without the salt in. Bless your heart.
It's raining, isn't it?
Girls, you're getting wet. Are you all right out there?
It's rained on many times.
Super job. There we go. Thank you very much. Another round of applause.
close to it, I call them paddy shoes. It's what the navvies would put under their boot when they were digging the trenches.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Oh, because patterns sort of kept you up off the ground a bit,
Yes,
didn't they?
yeah.
I was trying to work out what that is. Oh. Is that a castrator?
For trimming branches and stuff like that.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
I don't know.
This is a Valentine Mark 9 DD, built in 1943, and so far as we know this is the only one surviving in the world. It was used on Operation Smash 1, 2 and 3 with over 30,000 launches. I think we only lost a total of 15, I think it was. It was actually meant to be used for the assault on D-Day. It wasn't, it was switched to the Sherman for two main reasons. One, the gun couldn't have its gun over forward with the screen up, and two, the hatches are sideways, making it much more difficult to get out if in case it does go down. It'd have a crew of 3, your commander, your gunner, your driver. Your commander would stand at the back and operate the rudder controls, as you can see. You'd stand on here, operate this, which will move the propeller at the back. With the screen inflated, it's just above the turret and you wouldn't see it. This was on purpose to make it not look like a tank, to make it look like a civilian boat. So that the Germans watching it from the beaches wouldn't pay too much attention to it. They were actually very successful during the operations and the practices. People say that, you know, the secret weapon failed, but we realised the only thing they couldn't deal with is short, choppy water. Everything else was perfectly fine. Machine gun fire, fire in the water, artillery fire, the lot. And smooth waves handled it perfectly. The choppy waves, it couldn't quite react quick enough, so it used to collapse the screen or come over the top. But other than that, it was, you know, close to being unflawed. This here is the Daimler Dingo, 1938 design. I think this exact one was built in 44. They were very commonly used as, well, they are a scout car, and they were very commonly used in the Ireland campaigns. It can do 60 mile an hour forwards, 60 mile an hour backwards, which made it a very good scout vehicle, meaning, you know, you could drive up to the enemy, spot them. If they start shooting at you, chuck it into reverse and you've got all 5 gears backwards. It's very well armoured for the time it was built. At the front we have touch on about 2 inches of armour, which would be good enough for anything up to, you know, a boy's anti-tank rifle 15mm sort of thing. As you can see, its offence is a Bren gun. This was a very common weapon in the military, in the British military. Reliable, hard hitting, fast rate of fire and accurate. Inside, as you can see, it'd have 2 crew members, your driver and your commander. Your commander would sit here with his binoculars, telling the driver where to go and also firing the Bren gun, and obviously the driver would be in control of the vehicle. This here flicks up to allow rollover canvas to be deployed. This was very common in North Africa, as people used to throw handheld explosives into the vehicle as it open topped. Not very good for the crew. These lock down into holes like so. They're very good. It's waterproof and it would help conceal the crew from any sort of small arms fire up to explosives.
Yeah, they're Sawyer stoves, army issue. So these were from 1850s right through to the 1980s. I sold one to a farmer a while back up on the Derbyshire border. He'd been in the Falklands, he'd seen them in the Falklands, and he came back from the Falklands. I'd advertised one of these in one of the survival, and he sort of snapped it. They were used to feed, yeah. A lot of them went down with really big. I put the frying pans in here this morning, and that's what we used. So this stove is a Sawyer stove. It was used to feed the soldiers in World War I, World War II, and way back, firstly in the Crimea War. But World War II, these were used by the women's voluntary services. They were used overseas by Army Catering Corps chefs. Great bits of kit. See, Alexis Sawyer came over after the French Civil War. He invented this primarily for the Crimea War and worked along with Florence Nightingale. They actually saved 80% of the soldiers' lives that were injured, whereas so many were dying of wounds because they were fed properly for a change and had decent nutrition, decent hygiene. They saved thousands of soldiers' lives in the Crimea. So successful they were used in World War II and World War I used them for real up until the 1980s in the Oman Desert. So this particular one at the moment, it's got 10 pounds of onions diced, it's got 24 tins of baked beans, it's got 20 tins of tin potatoes, and it's going to have, if you want to hold up the corned beef, Nigel, it's got 24 tins of corned beef diced, which has been chilled for the last day. That's the last ingredient to go in. So that is our World War II corned beef hash, and that's what we're going to feed the reenactors here for lunch today, with 2 bits of bread. Okay, so these 2 gentlemen are dressed as World War II soldiers with their jerkins. We also fed breakfast for some of the reenactors this morning, egg butties and egg and bacon butties, as we called egg banjos. The reason they were called egg banjos was because if the eggs were cooked soft, when the yolk ran down, they go like that, like a banjo. That's why they were called egg banjos. Didn't know that, did you? There you go, see? Learn something every day, don't you? Egg banjo, because that's in. Get a spoon, Nigel, and taste it, yeah? Taste it. Put a quarter in first. So there you go, there's your baked beans. There's your potatoes. There's your corned beef. If you get a spoon and stir it, Nigel. So, there we are, there's a 2-pint ladle. So if you look into the pot there, that'll give you some idea of dimension. So you probably feed about 140 soldiers an 8-ounce portion. So into their mess tins. What does it taste like? Not too salty, Nigel? Yeah? Is that okay? We'll just let that simmer away and we might put some more in a bit later.
Come in. Yes, good morning. This is a Second World War field hospital. As you can see, we have got some patients and some empty beds ready for the next load of casualties. These are the sort of beds they would have set up in the hospitals because they are temporary. Around you, we've got lots of equipment. Here we have a typical surgeon's kit, which they would have operated on the casualties when they came in. Casualties would have come in on stretchers. And this is a portable operating table where the surgeons and the doctors would have had to do whatever they had to do to the patients. Unfortunately, we got a casualty here who's has some shrapnel wounds to the stomach, and we're trying to stem the bleeding at the moment, and hopefully he will survive. If I hand you over to my nurse now, this is a uniform which the nurses would have worn. This is Major Taylor.
I'd just like to show a couple of things that we used. This is an anaesthetic mask with gauze, was placed over the face, like that, and chloroform was administered, dripped in, and you had to get the dosage right, because too little and you would feel the pain, and too much would kill you. What else did I find? Oh yes, these bottles. Poison, and we know it's poison because of the ridges on the bottle. So if it was dark or you couldn't see properly and you pick that bottle up, you would know not to drink it because it's got ridges on it and it's poison. What?
Sterilising.
Oh yes, sorry, yes, a little portable sterilising kit. It would be filled with water, little meths burner underneath, boil your instruments, and then lift them out with the, and it'll go. Oh, it won't lift, but that will pull them out, so you can get them out of the boiling water. So through your instrument sterilisation, that's a bigger version of the same thing. And we had little ampules of morphine, which was the only painkiller we could give. Penicillin wasn't brought into use until much later in the war, so we didn't have the luxury of that, but something called sulfanilamide, which was the only thing that you could use against infection. And that's a powder that you would have sprinkled on the wound. But for hygiene purposes, we had the lovely good old carbolic soap, which has got a very distinctive smell and did a wonderful job, but it was very harsh on the skin.
Here we have an SAS Jeep which they used during the North African campaign in 1941 to 42 stroke 43. As you can see, it was heavily armed with 5 Vickers machine guns. It had to carry its own fuel and water, as you can see in all these jerry cans. And of course the jerry can is literally what it means. It's a German can. The Germans invented the jerry can, and you see the Jeep has got quite a few of them on because the British petrol came in what they call flimsy cans, which were very unstable to carry. I say it's fully armed. It was a 2-man operation. The SAS was formed by a gentleman called David Sterling, and he went on and he got captured, unfortunately, and the company was taken over by a gentleman called Mr. Main, and they are based, as we all know, still in Hereford. So this is one of the first vehicles they ever used, only in the North African campaign. During the European campaign they changed the colours, still had all the armament on it, but they could get rid of the jerry cans. So a very effective vehicle.
How are you, my darling? And I'll take stills a minute and I'll take some proper water. Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Yeah, no, it's done a good job for me. Yeah. Like I said, we've had it for 2 years. It's the first time it's been out. Yeah.
Hi. But it was the exhibition room, but it was quite dark, and we walked in with these answers and these all the children went,
Yeah, hello and welcome. My name's Chris. We belong to a group called On War Society, and we're just here to talk to you about the Great War soldier from the First World War. What you're looking at here is a soldier from that period. I'm dressed as a Welsh soldier, here, and here it says that I belong to the Welsh Regiment. I'm dressed for battle order for 1914 and into 1915 because I haven't got a steel helmet yet. I'm carrying the Lee Enfield rifle, and this is called webbing. That's what it looks like from behind. Short magazine Lee Enfield rifle. This is a 1918 rifle. See service with the British Army from 1904 through to late 60s. It's easy to operate. Just take the safety catch off, lift the handle, slide the bolt back, you reach over to your pocket, you take out 5 rounds of ammunition, you put them in the top, you push them down, you reach across to your webbing, you take out another 5 rounds of ammunition, you put it in the top and you push it down. You then close the bolt, you take aim and you fire. Then you recharge it, the round ejects, you recharge a new round, then you take aim and you fire. You can get a chance to have a look at this, just come and visit the stall and you can have a little look, see for yourself what your grandparents and your great-grandparents did for us 100 years ago. This is what you're looking at here is a British Vickers machine gun. It's a water-cooled machine gun, a group here in sunny Hay. A minute. Although it will be geared for 500 rounds a minute will be the normal. The box you're looking at here that carries the ammunition, that's a 250 rounds in a box, and it will go through 2 of those boxes in 1 minute. There was 2 to a battalion before the war and at the start of the Great War in 1914, and then the Machine Gun Corps is formed in 1915. And this forms the stable of all British machine gunnery. As I said, it's water cooled, so this jacket here will be half filled with water. As the barrel gets hot, it condenses on the top of this flute here, and it runs back down into a drain off container. A remarkably simple bit of kit. It has a range of about 5,000 yards, and for the British Army in the Great War they would use it very much like artillery, where the rounds would be falling in on the enemy. Probably the best claim to fame that this weapon has is on the 10th of July of 1916. The British Army had 10 of these guns which formed a company with the Machine Gun Corps, and in 10 hours the 10 guns on the 10th of July 1916 at the Battle of High Wood on the Battle of the Somme fired off 1 million rounds, and they didn't have a stoppage. So it's a remarkably efficient method of delivering rounds a long distance. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy it. Come and see us and you can we'll show you it in detail.
Good morning. So this is Mary Ann. She's representing the Women's Land Army during the Great War. So they helped out on the farms, and they helped out in the forests. This is the kind of activity they might have got up to. So this morning we're having a go at tent peg making. So this is her first one. So I'm giving her a little bit of tuition on making tent pegs. So we've started off with a log like that this morning that we've used an axe to split down. We've cleaved that into these billets, and now we're starting to shape the tent peg. So she's starting off by making the back of the tent peg flat, and then she's gonna work her way around it, creating the tent peg shape. So this is your first attempt, so how are you finding it?
There's definitely skill to it.
So hopefully by the end of the weekend we'll have a few tent pegs. It's always practical with our bell tents. That's it, so if you keep looking down it and see if you're getting a straight line on there. So she's using a draw knife to do the shaping. Hold that with 2 hands, pull it back towards you. So it's a really useful tool, the shaving horse she's sitting on. This was what bodgers in the old days would have used when they're out in the woods turning chair legs. This was the first stage, roughing out the chair leg. So is that looking straight on the back now? That's it, that's looking good. So we have to decide which end's going to be the top and what's going to be the bottom. So I would have said that's probably the thicker end. So you're going to take that down to more of a point now.
So I put that in there? Or do you just want to show us?
Yeah, so that's the one. That's what Mary Ann's been working on today. That was her first ever tent pig. So that's what we're aiming for. So I think that's pretty close. That's a practical, fully usable tent pig. So we're very, very happy with that.
That's my 1935 Triumph. It's a bike that obviously lived through the war, and I've set it up to represent the transport of the person I'm representing, an observer. That would be his transport to get up to the observer post, and my small display aims to represent something of what an observer post would have provided. It would have been looking somewhat different to this, but this on the table in front of you is some training material, just to get an idea of the sorts of things that observers would use to train themselves in recognition. They would have used material like this 1939 magazine, which showed the very latest for high-speed aircraft in RAF service, the Spitfire. Other material would have been available. And people would have basically trained themselves in that early wartime period. Some of the other material you see there is from later in the war. It just shows how things developed in terms of the quality and the quantity of training material. If you want to look at that aeroplane there, this aeroplane is like the sort of thing that observers would have used for training purposes. Displayed like that in a flying attitude to demonstrate how that, in that case an Avro Anson, would have looked in flight. But what did we do at a post? What did observers do? There would have been a crew of 2 people on duty at any one time, similar to these 2 gentlemen here in this post, set up one to observe through the instrument, which unfortunately I don't own a copy of, but on the platform, the same as that, this fellow is then reporting what is seen. And so looking at this platform, you can see that this one happens to represent a post, George 2, at Stradbroke in Suffolk, reporting to the centre at Bury St Edmunds, and that would be for 14 group at that time. And so an aeroplane might be seen or heard, could be a group of aeroplanes, and through this instrument you would sight up on it, estimate the height, and the angle would then give you a pointer over which grid square you would then report. And number 2 there would say something like, hello centre, George 2 reporting, aircraft seen, estimated height 10,000 feet, heading northeast over square 7397. And that square would be meaningful to the people at the centre, who would plot that item on that very square. This is a bigger scale, would include the areas for all of the local posts, and in that way a track of that aircraft or flight of aircraft would develop
would be plotted there, and these people at the back, called tellers, would tell that information to Fighter Command. So bear in mind, this is part of an integrated air defence system, unique in the world at the time and for many years after. Radar, RDF as it was called, has already perhaps reported and given an early warning of this track, and of course possibly many others. And so the early warning of RDF ended at the coast. Technology did not allow early radar to make sense of readings over land. So the only way of knowing what was flying over the UK was the eyes and ears of the Observer Corps, which became the Royal Observer Corps in April 1941. This is a picture of folk from about 1938 or 39. And is that the right angle? So that gives you an impression of how the system worked. Bear in mind you've got RDF and Observer Corps reports both feeding in separately to Fighter Command HQ, who are then in a position to filter all that information. Some of the plots would be of friendly aircraft, in which case that's fine, we don't need to do any more about it. But if they're proven to be hostile by identification, which the Observer Corps trained hard to achieve, then the Fighter Command would be able to, in a matter of moments from a first report, within a minute or two, decisions will be being made to scramble or not aircraft to go and intercept. And this is in part by the early warning of RDF, but largely by the reports of the Observer Corps. So it's that process that I'm here to try to represent today. These are contemporary training manuals, which do come up on eBay. They both came that way. I think most of this has come from eBay, in fact. Bless it. Shall I pick that up? Because it's the head and breast set. And so it's another version, another copy of that actually. So this is a contemporary wartime telephone unit. You'd ring that up to do a check to centre, and they would then, this is standard GPO post office equipment from the 1930s through to the 60s. So this, I can't do it one-handed. This goes around my neck and I would speak that way. That is now to speak, that is on, and that way is off. And this would go around my head in the, like you can see there with my colleague.
Dirty tricks, I'm a marvel when I'm out to win. In a 50-mile race I am the best. I ride 5 miles and skid the rest. So come along and see me riding in the TT races. Easier and top-scotch, beating all the top-notch aces. Once my bike was hard to ride, but I didn't mind, until I found 8 hitched to charabancs on behind. See the people cheering, I'm such a daring rider. Down the hill I go at breakneck speed. See me coming down the street with the women posed on the pillion seat. So come along and see me riding in the TT race. Champion. Come along and see me riding in the TT races. Easier and hopscotch, beating all top-notch aces. I've been riding all my life, I started quite small. I've ridden fairy cycles, iron scooters and all. Hear the people cheering, I am such a daring rider. lightning speed. With me gears in reverse, the other way I'll finish first. So come along and see me riding in the TT race. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed.
Good morning at the Hay at War show. My name's Dave, and there's 5 of us guys. We're all local really. Talgarth, Longtown, 2 guys from Hereford, and we're just basically trying to represent the British Airborne at Arnhem this weekend. Obviously the 77th anniversary of that this year. Stuff we got a couple of World War II Jeeps here, and all the kit and equipment on it. Yeah, we've got a Bren gun on the front there, 303 magazine fed. We've also got this BSA bike here, okay, which was a sort of air portable. You could jump out of an aeroplane with it. Just put that over there. Yeah, and you can actually fold it up. So it folds up like that. And then the guys from Dakotas, whatever, would jump out with a bike in front of them. Brave men. Other bits of kit. Got the Sten gun. Right, this was actually a Mark V Sten gun. So it was improved. It had a wooden butt, pistol grip, and a pistol grip at the back. Yeah, it just improved from the early war one. Yeah, and the guys would carry sort of 7, 8 magazines for that. Moving around the Jeep then. We've got these containers on the front here. A lot of people have asked what they are. They're not for keeping bottles of wine in or bottles of whiskey. All right, they're actually for PIAT rounds, which was a projector infantry anti-tank. All right, so they're small explosive charges in there. One of the guys portrays the Oxford and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry there, so that's the burying badge of that. In the back then, got the standard issue 303 number 4 rifle. Okay, it's 303 box magazine fed, bolt action. All right, so all of the guys really, normal infantry would have had this. Commanders would have had the Sten gun. Yeah, and then in every section you had a Bren gun, machine gun. So that's it really, guys. Thanks for your time. Come and see us.
Good morning. We have a display of vehicles from South Wales and South East Wales Military Vehicle Trust. The first one here is a Willys MB, Second World War iconic Jeep. The next one then, again, is a Willys MB. I'm not sure the year, but it's somewhere between 1942 and 1945. Following on, we have another Willys MB, again of the same era, Second World War, later part of the war. All Willis's MBs were made in America. The next one is a 1943 Ford GPW, which is a license-built version of the Willys MB, but built by Ford because they had greater production capacity during the war. Following on is another Willys MB in markings of the United States Army. It's built in May 1942, owned by a gentleman from Abergavenny. Then we come on to two more modern vehicles. The first one is a Land Rover Wolf soft top. And the Land Rover Wolves were the last of the Land Rovers used by the British Army. The second one is another Land Rover Wolf, sometimes called a TUL, which is Truck Utility Light, but this one is in fact a hard top and is marked up as FFR, which means fitted for radios, which meant all the electrics in there were 24 volt. These two Wolves come, one's from Abergavenny, the other one's from Pontypool. Thank you very much.
This is the 247B German armoured reconnaissance car. This was the one which was used as the HQ quarters. So that would be the headquarters for the motorcycle reconnaissance. So you would have 5 to 6 motorcycle and sidecars which would be part of this little command team on reconnaissance. This was a headquarters vehicle. Hence why if you come closer you will see the tactical motorcycle symbol which is on the wheel arch there. This is done as an SS vehicle. This vehicle was predominantly made in several versions, but few of them survive, if any survive at all. The early version was 2 wheels at the back, and then this one, the 247B, was the incarnation which survived in more numbers. It was exposed on the top because of being a command car. The only machine guns they got was originally an MG34, but here being late war we've got an MG42 on it. We'd also have an MG42 mounted here on the rear, and here is the extra stowage ammunition containers for the 7.92mm machine gun bullet which goes on there, and there's a spare barrel case. And the spare barrel case is for the quick change barrels on the MG42. Here we also have a Panzerfaust, we have spare fuel, and the crew's possessions are all on the outside, including sleeping bag, which is basically a blanket, personal equipment, a kettle, because you couldn't go anywhere without a kettle, and on here importantly inside the vehicle was grenades, anti-personnels, maps, because of being a headquarters company you needed to know where to go. As the war progressed these vehicles were then relegated through to smaller units, units that even such as a Folsom-Jaeger even had these vehicles at one point. And towards the end of the war, most early war vehicles were all being used, and this SS vehicle was handed over to the Volkssturm, which is a 279 Volksgrenadiers, and it would still bear its tactical markings. Basically it became a hodgepodge of troops which were all put together. So by April 1945, this is the period that I'm particularly portraying at the moment, there was a mixture of German SS troops, Volkssturm and stragglers, which were all rounded up to fight and defend Hitler's Germany, which, as you know, capitulated with the death of Adolf Hitler, and it was signed by Grand Admiral Dönitz for the surrender of Germany in 1945. My name is Craig Leonard, and I was doing your little talk about the 247 armoured car. Thank you.
We represent the 82nd Airborne, 505th and also the 325th glider pilots and guys. So we've got a basic setup here. We've got the chute, the spare chute, some of the kit that the guys would actually carry. Wouldn't obviously carry a 30 caliber machine gun on the parachute drop, but this is the kind of stuff that the 325th who came on the gliders actually came in with, as well as mortars and such. Here we have a handy talkie that the guys used. In just enough to enter the tent, we have a walkie-talkie. That was a backpack radio. We also have the different types. We've got the one type of gun here, which is the grease gun. The Airborne also carried Garands, carbines, Thompsons, Also sidearms, the Colt 1911. They carried as much ammunition as they possibly could, so in these pouches here with the white tassels, those would be filled with rounds. Pockets here would be filled with grenades. They also had the Hawkins mine, which would be strapped to the leg. That was like an anti-tank mine. Also, we had clips here for your 1911 pistol here. You had, obviously you got your water bottle. These alignment pouches, so when the Pathfinder's dropped, you have 2 Eureka beacon guys, so these would splice, these are the tools to actually splice and actually help to actually set all that kit up. So you had 2 guys, you had 2 beacon guys, which is set up the beacons for the Pathfinders, and you have a 6-man security team, which were the guys who actually looked after the guys who were setting up the beacons and the Eureka beacons to guide the rest of the planes in. And here we have some display panels here, which gives an overview of some of the weapons. And we've got a brief history of the 82nd as well. Their first drop was actually in, which is called the Oil Drum Drop Operation Husky, which was Salerno, Sicily. They had a second drop then. It was Salerno. Then they went on to Normandy for the D-Day drop, and then of course they served in Market Garden, and then on from there.
Hiya there. So my name's Jack. I'm part of the 29th Division Dog Company group. So we do US World War II reenacting. We've brought along some of our stuff here today so you can have a look. So Dog Company, it's the old phonetic alphabet, so it stands for D, and that would have been the heavy weapons group of one of the infantry battalions of the US Army. So we've got some of the heavier weapons and normal small arms on display. So I'll start off here with the 60mm mortar. So this is issued only to heavy weapons companies, not issued to normal infantry squads. And we've got some of the rounds here as a demonstration of what you can fire through it. These are normal sort of high explosive shells, and we've also got some smoke white phosphor. Now moving along, here's some of the equipment we might have carried in our kit, also extra bags. We've got some of the earlier revolvers here from the early wars, and they followed them through because the US Army was quite in short supply of pistols during the war. So before they adopted the classic 1911 that you might be familiar with, revolvers were very common to see even in the Second War. So moving on to some of the weapons, the standard issue weapon for a rifleman in World War II was the M1 Garand. It takes an 8-round clip, which I carry 10 of on my belt here. You can see there, and this was one of the first mass-produced semi-automatic rifles, which means every time you pull the trigger a round fires and you don't have to do anything else, compared to the bolt action rifles from the First World War, which were still used in the Second World War, like the Springfield here. So every time you rack the bolt like that you have to then redo it. Very effective, very accurate, so they used them as sniper rifles in the Second World War, as well as launching grenades and all sorts off the front of them. I've got an example of one of those down here. So these would literally plug on with a special tube. You'd clip a tube on, attach that, and then it would almost be a similar effect like a mortar. You'd pull the trigger, fire a blank round without a projectile on, and the gas from that would fire that a good, you'd get about 300 feet off that, be able to hit a good target accurately. So moving on, this is the mainstay of the heavy weapons company. So we've got lots of 30 caliber machine guns, Browning M1919s. So these are fed from a box of ammunition on a belt, and the German equivalent of this would be the MG42. This has a much slower rate of fire than the MG42, which makes it more stable, but it also means it doesn't get through as much ammo, so there's less for us to carry than the Germans, which is quite a nice factor. So here is some of the personal equipment, aside from the weapons, that is just vital to have in the field. So we've got some food, some rations, which come in cans, and they also come in boxes. All of this would be carried in my haversack that you can see on the back of me. We've also got some shaving, cleaning, other equipment that you might have in the field, because you need to maintain hygiene, and all of that just fits in barely and you carry as much as you can with extra bags. So issued to groups of men as needed is the M1A1 bazooka. So this was one of the first anti-tank weapons, and this would be manned in a squad of 2, so 1 to fire and 1 to load from the back. So from the back you'd load one of these rockets, and it's a battery powered system that could take down enemy armour. On the end here we have one of our sergeants doing a bit of work on one of the pistols. He's got his armoury set up here. And here we have the 81mm mortar, which is slightly heavier than the 60mm mortar you saw earlier. A little bit more range, and the projectiles are slightly larger, as you can see here. So as a heavy weapons company, we are supporting the main infantry body from a further distance back with more fire support. I hope you found some of that interesting.
Hello, we're the Cae group, which is the Operation Herrick and Tellick display team. So we display the weapons, vehicles and equipment of both the Second Gulf War and the Afghanistan War, sort of heading through from all the way from 2001, the beginning of the War on Terror, all the way almost through to the present day. So we have here a various display of vehicles and equipment from that time. And this is a HESCO bastion bunker, which is the protection for the compound. So it would normally be a little bit higher than this. These are basically a flood defence, which the military has basically converted into an easy and quick way of building a hard point or sanga. And so it's got viewing points, so it would normally have sort of machine gun points on top and a lookout point, and be manned 24 hours a day. This is the protection for the base. Normally these would be located all the way around a compound or base, wherever the vehicles and equipment was based, and would provide the security and control for the perimeter of the base. If we move on, this is my vehicle, what would be called the Snatch Land Rover. This is a replica of the last variant. None of these are out of military service as yet, although they're likely to be in the near future. This replicarises, like I say, the last variant, which is the most up-armoured variant with the latest modifications, larger engine, automatic gearbox, and as I said before, extra armour inside and outside, especially as you can see underneath there on the bottom, which provides protection for the interior of the vehicle from smaller landmine and IED blasts. Obviously, as it's well known, the Snatch Land Rover is very lightly armoured in comparison to modern mine protected vehicles. It's only a light protected patrol vehicle. So as you can see, it's got the more modern radio equipment on the back for bowmen and SATCOM's radio, which is the cross antenna in the middle. And then as we move round to the front, you can see more of the what would be called the ECM or electronic countermeasures equipment. There's several different antennas there for different wave bands and wavelengths, which control the protection for
electronically triggered and controlled IEDs and block the signals to these devices. So if we move forward to the front of the vehicle, see here, this is another form of electronic countermeasures equipment. Say up until fairly recently, and it is actually still used. I believe we're not sure. This is still fairly well restricted information on these of exactly how this works, but we believe it's to counter buried IED devices in the ground. That's why it points in that direction. So moving over to the other vehicle, we here have a Land Rover OWMIC version. As you can see here, mounted with 50 cal on the top and a general purpose machine gun 7.62 caliber on the front, on the commander's seat there. Commander and driver in the front and top cover gunner in the rear. There's various equipment, as you can see, personal equipment, webbing on the side, personal weapon, etc. These are a Pathfinder vehicle, so they operate as a mobile firepower base for them to operate around they operated in Iraq and Afghanistan. You have the 50 cal as the main protection and long range firepower for the vehicle. Okay, and as you'll see hung around the vehicle, lots and lots of personal equipment, which is due to the inside becoming basically the communications equipment and the ammunition store for the vehicle. That's why also you see all the jerry cans on the outside to give the vehicle longer range. Just in front of the heavy 50 cal machine gun, you see a mount for a Milan anti-tank missile launcher, which would give extra firepower. And on the back here are the 84, I believe, anti-tank weapon, which is a lightweight disposable shoulder launched weapon. Useful not just for attacking armour, but hardened points, troop concentrations, and anything like that you want to reach out and attack at a reasonably longer range. So as you could probably hear here, you've got the radio communications equipment, which is the 2 units there. Batteries are underneath, ammunition storage on both sides. That's the top gunner's seat for when he's not on the 50 caliber, and personal weapons again. Sand ladders here for traversing soft ground. 2 spare wheels, once again an important thing when you're driving through rough country and areas like Afghanistan, where there's a lot of sharp rocky deserts and operating away from support. You need to have plenty of spares because you're likely to get plenty of punctures, especially with a heavily loaded vehicle like this. Moving forward, you can see the snorkel here. So we'd normally in this country consider this for protecting the engine from water, but in a dusty environment like the desert, it's best to get your intake as far away from the wheels where there's a lot of dust, dirt and grit which can get into your engine. So once again you can see smoke grenades, personal equipment of the driver there, plate carrier and personal support weapon, 9mm SIG pistol there. And as you can see, carried in the middle is a GPS unit. That's for your carrying your orientation, your location for the commander to use. More radio equipment in the middle, a radio controlled base unit which allows you to speak out to people in other vehicles and on the ground with their own personal roll radios, same as is on the plate carrier here and on my own personal equipment just by my left shoulder there, which would be carried through these headsets, which would fit up to one ear like that. So we have a weapons display here where we've got weapons of the opposing forces there. We have 2 AKs and an RPG-7. RPG-7 is, interestingly enough, an Iraqi-made version, which is very rare. And the 2 weapons are at the top are Taliban captures, basically weapons captured and taken from Taliban fighters. They're all fully deactivated now in the UK, obviously, but those are the kind of equipment that the enemy or insurgent forces would be using. And then moving over towards the left, we have more of the UK, US, NATO forces, coalition forces weapons, Western forces weapons as such. The at the top there of the left-hand rack, the M4s, very commonly seen with all US forces, and moving down, one of the British SA-80 A2s there, and then at the bottom that is a variant of similar to our special forces would use, which is once again a variant of the American weapons. That's the Canadian C8, I believe. Then we have a display of helmets along the front here, US forces, Afghan forces and British forces at the end there. Hello again. These 2 vehicles are the DAF T244, which is the later 4-tonner version, which basically replaced the Bedford MJ and MK range. Very common truck, pretty much for the British Army. So shown here as it would have been used in Telic and Herrick, although generally these were seen much more on Operation Telic. So you could convert these, shown here as a soft top vehicle with a canvas for troop transport or general cargo, also used for carrying fuel, repair equipment, bridging equipment, you name it, basically jack of all trades. And then we'll move on here to the Snatch. This is a 2A desertized version, so this has air conditioning and the Barracuda, which is like a heat protective camouflage as such. It protects the vehicle from excessive sort of UV heat from the sun, but also can lower the infrared signature of the vehicle if that's required. You've got a search and spotlight and grills on the outside. As you can see, it's basically derived from the Northern Ireland variant, where you would use this for internal security and riot duties, so that the grille allows you to have protection from thrown stones, petrol bombs, etc. That's what the screen up round the roof hatch is for, also to protect top cover from thrown items. This vehicle has a ECM suite as well, the electronic countermeasures to protect from IEDs, which are electronically triggered. We also have the bull bar and wheel on the front on this model, which is very useful in urban environments for protection of the vehicle and for removing barricades and blocking vehicles. So obviously this is fully armoured as well with composite armour, with armoured glass. They have a poor reputation, but actually for their weight they're exceptionally well armoured. They can take a good load of impact from 7.62 rounds and still be protective to their occupants. I say essentially they were designed, like I say, for Northern Ireland, where there would only be small calibre rounds, like I say, such as 5.56, 7.62 and 9mm, and small small explosive devices such as nail bombs, etc.